You're on. Go. Kim, are you ready?
Sure. You want me to do?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And Leslie, you can jump in anytime you want as well.
Thank you. I will.
Since you were there. So on Monday, Mike and Leslie and I met with Dale, mostly to kind of debrief on the February 12th, 13th meeting, but to also let them know where we're at, what we're doing, and what's going on. And overall, it was a really positive meeting. Couple of things that we learned is, well, the first thing I asked him was, you know, what does he need from us in order to move forward with what he needs to do? And he said that he wants to know what the cost would be, of course, of this program, and but also that the governor has a new way of doing budgets in their performance-based budgets, which means that they have to tie performance indicators to all of the budget items. So what we'll have to do is for anything we put in our budget, we'll need to explain what it is we're going to do with it and how are we going to measure it. So I don't think it's that daunting. I think it's easy enough to do that, but it's just another thing that we'll have to do. He said that he's happy with our end of May deadline, that's actually perfect for his budget planning process. And that this is interesting that he said he's looking at pretty much everything that he's doing in terms of kind of 3 phases, and they're tied to the biennia that he's expecting to have influence over. So he's expecting that Governor Sandoval will win the next election, and I think most people are, in which case then there's the 2 biennia of that term, and then usually governor, well, the outgoing governor will set the budget for the incoming governor. So that's a 3rd biennium that he's planning for as well. So it's really, he said to look at our project as we're planning as as 3 phases. So the 3 biennia, which would be then 6 years. He wants us to focus on, and just reiterating what he said to us before, but it's always important to remember that, you know, his top priorities and the governor's top priorities are the student populations like ELL, English language learners, and special education, and to also focus on the smarter assessments and Common Core state standards, and now also the next generation science standards that were just approved by the board last week. And then he's really interested in middle school as well. So, and if you want, well, I'll just mention this now that I've met yesterday I met with both the infrastructure group and then, you know, my leadership group, and excuse me, they've all pretty much have signed on and agree that 7th and 8th grade would be a good place to start. So kind of focusing in on that 7th and 8th grade population. Leslie and Mike had asked Dale if they could, if he would muster some support from the school or from the district superintendents, and he said that there would be a superintendent's meeting coming up within the next few weeks, and that he would mention it and talk about it with them and try to get some support from that group. And I think maybe one of the coolest things that came out of that meeting is that he's going to let us use the name Nevada Ready for our project, which is really pretty big because that's our new, if you haven't seen it yet, our new logo says Nevada Ready. I mean, that's all it really is a nice font and it says Nevada Ready. So he's letting us use that name for our project, which is pretty big, I think. So those were kind of the highlights that I got out of the whole deal. I don't know, Leslie, did you have anything else that you want to add?
I think you covered it. I think the big takeaways were having to have the measurable performance indicators for the plan that we put forth. We wanted each of these groups to have consistent formats in terms of posting minutes and notes, so that we can begin to gel those and bring those together. And in terms of his final deliverable, what he wants to take away, we have to work on that from the work that each of these groups does as they go forward.
So I have a quick question. Last time this group met, one of our concerns was exactly what we need to be producing here, because as we were getting into our discussion, it becomes holy cow, there's a lot of things to cover in this. I mean, there's no way if we went anywhere in depth in different areas that just be ready to May, because we don't all have that kind of time to devote, I think, to do that. So then maybe they just wanted more of a big picture kind of a piece, or?
Yeah. Do you want me to take that, Tara?
Yes, please.
Okay. Maybe it would help this group to know, I've been to all of the group meetings. If you want me to give you kind of a big picture of what's going on in the other two groups, and then at least how I see this group fitting into the big picture, I'll do that. So my group, the Leadership Communication Finance Work Group, we talked yesterday just about that, and I think that's a really important, was that Brian?
Yes.
Okay. That's a really important thing to set up right ahead of time. So we've come up with three things that we're going to do. And the first thing is, I had it listed as a messaging sheet, but it's really a much bigger thing than that. And then that's the communication strategy. So we're working on that, and we're also working on that. We're calling it the fact sheet, I think, or the fast facts, maybe. I don't know. We're still working on that. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. It's that fast fact sheet that's going to list all the reasons why we're doing this. And then we'll be responsible for the final budget and putting that together. But I imagine, well, we're going to have to get a lot of the pieces from the other two groups. So we'll be working really closely with the other two groups on that piece of it. And then along with that, of course, the performance indicators that go along with the budget. So those are kind of our three things. As far as the infrastructure group goes, I don't know that they've identified the bullet points like I have in my group, but what they're working on right now is we spend a lot of time talking about what it is that we need in the classroom to make it happen. So what I arranged to do, and Tara, you were invited as well. And I know you'll be on your way to McQueen. Yeah, but Ed and John and I are going to meet with Jeff Mao next week. And Jeff Mao runs the program in Maine. It's really the only other state-run one-to-one program in the country. And they've negotiated a multi-state contract, and they base their budget on a unit price, which they call a seat. And that seat includes not just the device, but also some professional development and warranties and repairs and software and a whole bunch of stuff. So that's the seat price. And then in addition to that, they have an additional network unit price, and that's basically per student. And that's the seat price is also per student. And so that network price is part of the contract, and it's optional because some schools already have their internal networks are up and running and are just fine, but not all schools are. So we're meeting with them next week to kind of figure out what it is that's part of that, and what constitutes a seat, and also, is it possible for Nevada to get involved in that, because the seat prices are really very good. It's somewhere in the neighborhood, depends. They have a tablet and they have a MacBook and then they have an HP laptop, and it's right around $250, give or take. And then that network price is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40 to $50 per seat. So that's one of the main things they're doing. They're also, they really want to get an idea of what the standards are, the technology standards for the districts across the state. So like, what is the standard, I don't know, tablet that you guys use in your district? And so they've sent out, we're in the process of putting together a little survey, and I'm going to send that out probably today. So that's kind of their main priorities at this point. So with that, I think for you guys, okay, let me say one more thing. And this kind of came out in the first meeting that I had with the infrastructure group that I joined with in on, and this may help you kind of frame how these three groups kind of interact, or how they fit into the bigger picture. So if you think of like why, how, and my group, the Leadership Communication Finance group, is really trying to present the argument of why this is important, and we're looking at the why of it. The infrastructure group is really looking at how this is going to come together. They're going to, how do we get the devices into all the hands and make sure that they run and all of that. You guys are providing the what. What is it that we're going to do with the kids and the teachers? And I don't know if that helps at all. But specifically, I think you guys need to really be thinking about what is that professional development going to look like? Who are the players? Who's going to be part of that? What are the pieces of the professional development? Who's involved? When does it take place? That kind of stuff. Then the other thing that I think would be really important for you guys to look at is what happens in the classroom. And that's really, I think, where you start. And Leslie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what are we trying to do in the classroom? What makes this different? And why is it, well, not why, but really what makes this different? So that's how I kind of see it. And then, of course, the evaluation piece, that actually now, with these performance indicators, we need to be cognizant of that. But you have enough to do with those two things, and I think my group can really look at the evaluation piece of it with those performance indicators, because that's really, that's program evaluation. But you guys, you're the meat of this project. Without whatever you guys put together, we might as well not do this if we don't have professional development and a solid understanding of what we're going to do in the classroom. Does that make sense to you guys? And Leslie, do you think I'm on track?
Yeah, I think the key is obviously integrating those. How do all these, how do all the professional development, the Common Core, the curriculum, the assessment piece, how are these intertwined in a meaningful way? And then how does the one-to-one approach power that up and facilitate in a very productive and expeditious way that this happens? So, I think the PD gets at how do we implement the Common Core and using the one-to-one technologies in order to do that well. So, yeah, you're right. That is the heart and soul of it. That's why the professional learning is such a core piece for all the educators, principals, technology folks to be tied together to do this.
Well, it sounds like then that knowing what the pedagogy is going to be important, so then you know what kind of PD you need to deliver.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, understanding, you know, the big piece of the professional learning component has to be how teachers retool using the one-to-one technologies to get at the learning outcomes. So that is a major component of the professional learning. And how do we, you know, once we know what that is, how do we then, you know, get that in a core, consistent manner delivered across the state?
This is Leanne. How does this then fit in? I know we have one pilot school for the Nevada Performance Evaluator Framework. I'm sure I didn't say that correctly, but anyway, the new teacher evaluation system. So if the expectation is the teachers participating in these professional learning opportunities, is that going to be part of that, or the Teachers Leaders Council is still working on that, but is that something that there needs to be a conversation going on as we talk about it?
Yeah, when we met, I think we brought the teacher framework up and talked about how very well that laid a foundation for creating the rest of this. Mm-hmm. You know, it all very much complements each other, and that's a very good place to begin. You know, and it ties into that teacher evaluation process, but it more importantly ties into the pedagogical shifts that are going to be expected.
Right.
So how do we help teachers scaffold from where they are now, and they're all in probably different places, to the point of creating this very student-centered approach using the power of technology to have students acquire information and knowledge and skills instead of using static resources and producing in a, you know, learning in a very linear fashion.
Is there any way, because I'm so concerned that, I mean, I think that's an awesome task to take on. I mean, I'm really excited about that. My concern is the way that we're going about this right now is we kind of think about it ourselves and dump some stuff in a doc, and then we do this every once in a while. I'm just wondering if that's such a big undertaking. Is there any way that we can have some more days where, I don't know, schedule it so that we can all get together and have a whole day or two to kind of hash some of this out? I don't know what kind of budget there is out there for that, but.
This is Kim. I think it'd be great if you guys wanted to get together. As far as budget goes, you know I have no money, but I think I don't know who all is on this group, but I think most of us are in the north, and we could put something together where if the folks who are part of this group who are in the south maybe could join via Skype or something, or come up, of course. But if you wanted to do that, I'm happy to attend and be part of that.
Yeah, I am too. This is a huge concept to start planning out, especially when we're not necessarily sure if we're going to get the money to actually do it.
Okay.
You guys have all three phases plotted out?
No. I would start with phase one. The next biennium, we're looking at 15, 16, 16, 17. And we need to be cognizant of the future phases. And I think if we really focus on 1, 2 and 3 will kind of, the details of it will maybe fall into place. It'll become apparent. And hey, also the other thing I want to mention as far as funding goes, how do I say this? So I'm not at liberty to give details, but I can say that there's a strong possibility that some funds that were a lot of funds that are potentially going to wind up in the budget may not, or a big project that potentially was going to wind up in our budget may not wind up in our budget, in which case there would be a lot of money available, not specifically for this, and we'd have to scramble for it and, you know, compete for it. But I think we're in a really good place where we would be very competitive because we're pretty organized. Although it may not seem like it, we really are. We really are. More so than like a lot of other competing forces would be. So, so there's a stronger possibility than there has been in the past. So.
Well, okay. Well, it makes sense to me that we start with professional development for teachers in that first phase. What does everyone else think? Are we ready to go get started on that thought process?
Well, yeah. So I think the pedagogy piece.
Yeah.
Piece to drive that. I mean, I tend to think from what I've seen so far and our days down in Carson earlier, we seem to be pretty much on the same page as far as what that looks like in general. I think, you know, we need to spend some time hashing that out. There's obviously some differences between, you know, different levels, between elementary, middle, and high, of what that might look like. And then part of that's even based on what background the kids come into that. Obviously, it's different when you're starting out and you're dumping laptops wherever you're dumping them or whatever. And so, you know, like we heard about what happened in Maine, and I really like that they chose middle school to make a big, you know, hit there in what they saw as kind of their biggest problem area. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. I know some other districts and schools have started it. I know in Asia, a lot of the quote-unquote American schools there have big laptop programs, tend to roll it out in like 3rd and 7th, and then they kind of meet in the middle, right? They move up, and so part of that is gonna make a difference. And so I think knowing kind of where we want to go pedagogically is going to drive, again, kind of where we're going to go professional developmentally. Because like in Maine, obviously they were more focused on initially, you know, those 7th grade teachers and the 8th grade teachers. Not that you're not going to serve, you know, elementary because it's not rolling there for a while in their model, but
I think you ought to definitely, on a parallel path, be providing the professional development for administrators too, because
yeah.
you know there is an incredibly important piece that leaders have to play in making this venture successful across the state, and only if and until those administrators, and I'm talking superintendent, cabinet level, as well as principals, you know, nothing the effectiveness is not going to happen without good leadership. So parallel path for the leaders as well as the teachers.
Leslie, I certainly second that. That's the model that we've been doing here in Carson City, where the administrators, the building administrators, principals, vice principals, deans at the secondary level come at least for a once-a-month training, and then the district office staff has been a little bit different, but definitely, and basically really using the NESA as a basis for and a framework for that PD.
Leanne, this is Kim. Did you, when you guys were in the planning phase, did you come up with some sort of curriculum document or pedagogical documentation of what you were going to accomplish?
Was that directed to me?
No, that's to Leanne.
Oh, Leanne. Okay, great.
Well, the two things. In conjunction, both the NETS-S and the NETS-T, how are the teachers going to help the students meet their standards, and then how do we grow the teachers to understand their standards. So it was really based on the NETs. We also have really focused on, and I know there's controversy, a little bit of controversy about the TPAC, but we really used that as a guide for the simple fact, not getting into a lot of specifics, but the idea that the T could also stand for tool, not just technology. We know there are many tools out there. When we focus our lessons, we have to, I always get the three-legged stool analysis. We can't just focus on the pedagogy. We can't just focus on the content and then whatever the tool is. A lot of times the technology will be the appropriate tool or the best tool, but maybe it's not. And so helping the teachers understand that, because that shift that we are making right now at both of our middle schools here in Carson City, you know, the biggest anxiety builder for our teachers was the expectation they thought at the beginning, which is not this, that the students are all going to bring their laptops to class every day. They're going to have them on every minute. We're going to have to be doing everything using this technology. And we have really based it on, right now to start with, and we've already seen it increase above this 35%. Some of the research that I have been doing, 35% is a good basis to start with. If teachers can use the technology about 35% of the time in their classroom, so if you think about that with an hour class, if the technology is the focus for what the instructional purposes are, or about 20 minutes, if they may use it all class period, they may use it 3 class periods in a row, and the next 2 or 3 class periods, but they don't use the technology at all. It's whatever lends itself best. It's also been a great tool for us when we've been communicating with our parents, because the parents have been, you know, we had parents saying, well, you know, we're trying to get our children to power down at home at night. Now you're sending this computer home, and now they think they need to be on that all night. And the same idea, if your child has an hour's worth of homework every night, maybe 20, 25 minutes will actually be spent using the computer as a tool. They may be doing other things. If they're checking Edmodo, if they're creating something in Google Drive, if they're logging into something else. But those are I'm kind of rambling here, but those are the frameworks, if you will, that we have really based this on. And the laptops have now been in the hands of the kids at both middle schools for 3 weeks, and all the walkthroughs that we have been doing, just, you know, observing, they're definitely using it more than 35% of the time. And now, and they're continuing to find, obviously, with the professional development that we're providing on an ongoing basis, they're you know, just finding multiple ways to you know, to use the tool and other resources.
This is Robert. Sorry for joining late. I think we have to. I think we've got to kind of we're going to tread a little bit carefully here with lots of different districts that are doing sort of a number of different things. And this is not just tagging on to what Leanne was saying, but you know, if we get too heavy into content, you know, I think we're going to end up with a lot of people that are pushing back on some of this. So I wonder if we really focus this on, I mean, I know Leslie and Mike have, I mean, I think the sort of things are clarifying around what the best practices are in terms of rolling out something like this. I think if we're focusing on the pedagogical pieces that are important for incorporating or you know, integrating the technology into what is happening in the different districts. I think we may be more, you know, and centering the PD around, you know, for administrators on how do you observe these kind of practices, how do you encourage these kind of practices in schools, and for teachers, you know, how do you see this as a process of getting to where you want to go? And so things like, you know, TPAC and SAMR are great for that, and then, you know, but they sort of lack something in terms of the application, in terms of what we've sort of determined is that we're going to use a broader. Here are some of the broader sorts of changes you're going to see pedagogically, rather than just integrating technology. But I wonder if potentially we stay more on that side of things than on diving into too much on the content side.
Well, and that came up too, I think, when we were down in Carson, is one of the, I don't know if I want to call it an obstacle to all this, is just that on the one hand, when Dale spoke, he talked about, hey, make this really innovative, really make this new. But then you bunch up again, like you were just saying, against all the different things that districts have in place, different programs they've got coming in that they've invested money and time in and whatever. And then, well, but if you're going to do it this way, then we kind of need to set that aside. So, and maybe that's something to consider in phases 2 and 3, that I'm certainly not a proponent of everybody doing the same thing by any means, but I think you're right, we're going to run into some of that depending on how we approach this. Not quite sure how to handle that, but definitely going to be part of what we have to work on.
I'm kind of picturing, this is Kim, and as I'm listening to you guys talk, and I'm thinking about, there's this final deliverable that we're going to have to put together in a couple of months here. I'm thinking maybe we need a piece, a couple of pages or something, that, explains some of this stuff that we're talking about, and in terms of what happens in the classroom. So, because a lot of people that we're going to be explaining this to aren't going to know what blended learning is, flipped classroom, project-based learning, 21st century skills, and even make mention of like TPAC and SAMR and some of these other things that we're talking about, just to kind of frame it for, a manageable something that you guys can do as a group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's got to be framed appropriately, and I wonder if, I always get scared that we frame things too much around the technology rather than around the pedagogy. So I guess, if we dive into too many models and too many different pieces like that, that we're sort of missing the forest, for the trees, however that, I messed up that.
Well, one of the things, what we did in Michigan when we launched our statewide one-to-one program is we knew we needed a framework. We needed a model that was going to help people be able to understand, what it was they were going to do, integrating technology into an inquiry-based, learning model. And so we adopted what's called the NTech model. It was developed by 2 professors, one from University of Memphis, one from, at the time, Wayne State University. But it was called the NTech model, Integrating Technology for Inquiry. And they wrote books on it, et cetera. But because we needed some statewide framework, there's many of these kinds of things out there. And you could adapt from TPAC or SAMR your own framework, which many districts have done. But we used this because we didn't have TPAC or SAMR, at the time. So we used the NTech model. And what we did was take all our super coaches. So we had these identified key professional developers across the state, regionally based. And we brought in those professors to teach the NTech model. And then those super coaches went in and taught the lead teachers from the districts that NTech model. Now, people thought, once you have that framework, then you can run and fly and adapt it all you want. But you get the basic tenets about what it is you're going to be doing that's different from what you have been doing and how to do it. So I'm going to post the links to that just so you can see that, not proposing you adopt that and use it, but the idea that, yeah, you do have to have a framework and a model kind of thing that you can use as a basis, not that people can't have the ability to adapt from that and adjust it. It's just that you want to make sure that they're not going to adjust back down to what they've been doing that is not transformative. Do you understand what I'm saying? That the practice you want them to get in is they're changing their craft and the learning ecosystem into this whole different kind of practice.
Absolutely. And I might add that I'm part of another group just like this statewide that Dave Brandkamp and a couple others are part of. And we're just about to roll out the Nevada STEM implementation framework for K-12 schools. And believe me, it matches up a lot with what we're talking about here. I mean, and what I liked about that group was none of us are married to STEM. It's really just great pedagogy. It's just that's the buzz right now, and so we're willing to run with that as long as we make really positive changes in the way things are happening. But I'm not supposed to. I think we're really close to being able to publish some of that. I know they're trying to get it out now, and I'll find out more about that. But not that we have to follow that, but that might be help us in many ways.
I will talk with Dave today if he's in and see if we can get a hold of that and maybe even use it. And it'd be great if another group has already done our work for us.
Yeah,
we've even rubriced out.
Collaborating.
We've even got different levels of implementation. Exploratory, introductory, partial immersion, and full immersion. So we've even done quite a bit of that work. So,
Brian, how does that tie in with? I mean, this is a STEM framework. I'm sure you've dealt with the issue of how does this tie in with language, arts, instruction, with across different grade, all sorts of different things like that. How well does that?
That's one of the things I love about STEM. Like I'm doing presentations about that tomorrow, and STEM is really language, arts, intense. I mean, I did it for a lot of years at one of the most at-risk schools in the north, and that's what I loved about it is when you're doing deep inquiry and learning about things that kids are really motivated about, they're way more willing to read hard and write hard and really go deep, and they're motivated and they talk about it. And then you couple that with sharing what you're learning online through blogs and stuff, there goes your family engagement piece through the roof, because now parents aren't just seeing grades, they're actually seeing their kids' work, and they see, wow, on their blog, wow, look at that. Look how they were writing in September, and look how they're writing now in February, and then at the end of the year. And then if the blog, that kind of thing carries on, which I know a lot of schools across the country that do that kind of work, the blog moves with the child right through the grades. So all that work is archived, and it's a huge piece to be able to show parents and administration and everybody else that, because it's that individual kid's work. And look where they were and look where they are now. And so it really goes well with it. It's teaching kids to be learners and using the technology to get at the learning. That's what I love about it.
Right. So how does that? I mean, if you're say high school English teacher, I'm just trying to anticipate potential issues with, what I'm saying?
Yes. I think in reality, we talk a lot about how do we do that in the middle and high school where you don't have maybe a teacher that's able to integrate everything because they're basically teaching every subject. I think it actually starts, and I know a couple of the middle and high schools have tried to, or not tried, or implementing STEM, try to do that piece where, the data that comes out of science class then pushes into math class, and they crunch it in math class and do exactly what they're supposed to be learning with that data. And of course, to make that happen smoothly, then the science teacher and the math teacher are going to have some conversations about what, I really kind of need data like this right now in math, because that's when, we'll deal with some of the other two and crunch that, that'll be good practice. But, whatever we're working on right now, it would be nice if we're getting data that fits into that schema. And then in English class, we're maybe writing about, what's going on. And you can't make that happen all the time. All those different places need to have their own autonomies to get through what they're supposed to get through. But you got to be doing this stuff. This project ended on Friday and the next one starts on Monday. I think sometimes you spill out of that and go back to, a more, what am I trying to say, model where you're doing more explicit instruction for a while, and then you roll back into taking what you're learning into a more inquiry-based model, so that you're using what you're learning explicitly and then using it in that inquiry base and really able to use what you're learning. I don't know, does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking of, I just put in the notes there about a Nevada Ready district and principal and classroom. I think we need to paint the picture of our vision in what we give to Dale as our elevator speech. And then the plan is what we need to make that vision come alive. So what is a district, what is a Nevada Ready district? What is the principal doing? What does the classroom look like? What is the teacher doing? And it's almost like a day in the life kind of idea, but also the behind the scenes, like for the teacher. What has the teacher done in order to prepare to have this Nevada Ready classroom? And what has the district done to prepare the principals and so on? So kind of creating a story of the journey that we want to take. And then why we need the money for professional learning and for the devices and for the infrastructure and for establishing a statewide network of collaboration.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
This is Leanne. I'm typing on here, and I know Holly, you just typed on there as well. The ISTE. I just brought up, the standards, and ISTE is already put together, as we talked about performance indicators. There are performance indicators for each one of these standards. If this is the basis for what we, at least the principal, the teacher, and the student, that it seems like some of the work has been done for us as far as at least using it as a basis or a framework to start what are they doing and what does this look like.
I'm feeling like what Tara said is sort of bringing up some, and actually Holly had mentioned something on the chat there as well on the document, but which made me think, where are we? What's our end point with this? I mean, are we really looking at completely re-envisioning school, which, I mean, we should be, but, is that achievable, and is that something that's we're going to get buy-in for, or are we looking at are we looking at a sort of an immediate transformation where some of these issues kind of resolve themselves pedagogically, or are we looking at, a sort of an evolution of this within the existing system? You know what I mean? I'm sort of struggling with what our endpoint is with this. I think I know what we all want to do, but is that achievable, and is that what we're going to create this plan around?
That's a really good question, Robert, and I wrestle with that myself. I mean, I think that when this, I'm going to say when this rolls out, not if it rolls out, that we're going to be focusing probably in on schools that are, high need, high risk. So that would probably play into the answer of that, but I don't know. I'd like to think that we're gonna totally transform. It'll be an immediate transformation, and that would be part of it. Because think about it. This is if this funding comes through the commission, which it probably will, then it's probably going to wind up being another competitive grant process, and if they want the money, then they'll have to transform, right? I mean, isn't that what we're talking about?
Yeah, and I mean, if we're going to go for that, that's great. I think we just need to clarify that right up front so that we all know where we're going. It's not, it's like I'm thinking about the high school English teacher thing. Is like, if we're re-envisioning what school looks like. I mean, I know we're talking about middle school, but a middle school English teacher. If we're saying you got to change the whole structure, and there is no such thing as a middle school English teacher anymore, it's all. There's more integrated stuff, more inquiry-based stuff. We need to set out with that so we can build this structure around that rather than, getting there over a long period of time.
And I think that goes back to what Kim was saying earlier. It'll be really interesting to find out, because I remember when Jeff Mao video conferenced in, one of the things he said was they picked 7th and 8th grade to make that. So what's really different now? What is going on there, and what can we learn from that? Because that might help quite a bit.
Well, you know what? If Dale wants us to be bold and innovative, then I just say, yeah, we go for it. We go big. We go big or go home. So. We want to make a big impact. So, yeah, we're all in. And if we can have a passionate vision, and there's potentially money that can back it, I say we jump off that ledge and do it.
I agree.
I'm in. So what does that look like? And that might be a really good place to kind of focus this group's energy, is what does that look like? What is total transformation? What does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a number of different things. So, I mean, building that flexibility, if we're going to go there, part of that is that local innovation piece where schools have the flexibility to innovate in their own environments that, within a framework of, here's where we're going, but it's that we really need to honor that and what they're doing as well.
And along with that too is I think there's a few things that are the barriers that are holding a lot of our teachers back. One is money, obviously. That we have a lot of teachers doing the PD already on their own, but they want to do more, but they can't because they don't have the devices or the Wi-Fi or whatever. But also we have to. This is where the assessment part comes in, where we need to, as a state, start alleviating some of that pressure from the standardized test, and be able to have the freedom to make these changes in their classrooms and their schools without, that black cloud of, oh, well, your scores are going to drop. Yeah, they probably are, but I don't know. It just, the teachers are afraid, I think, to step out of that box of traditional teaching because they have to drill so much information into their kids, and they just don't have the energy to try to make it, real exciting. So that's huge with our assessment department being a part of this. But what I was thinking, maybe our next steps would be each of us take one of these segments, and start creating a story for each of them.
And what are the segments?
Like district, principal, classroom, teachers, students. What are they doing during the day, or what? And maybe have a structure that we write and say, we give them a name. Mrs. Jones wakes up and this is what her day looks like as a Nevada Ready teacher, and then so maybe the whole story of what she does. And then the second part of that is, how did Mrs. Jones get here? And then we talk about all the professional learning that she's done and all the contacts she's made across the state, and how she's interacting with other teachers to make this change possible, and how often does her coach come in and observe her and give her ideas and support her in the choices she makes. And you know, what is again, you bring in the other pieces then, and you say, okay, this, you know, Mrs. Jones has this support, you know, her principal comes in and, you know, all this stuff. So it's from the point of view of each different role in this whole production and how each of them got to that point and why it works.
Very nice.
So almost like a storybook. So by the end, we get this all put together, and we could actually make it into a digital storybook. We can have videos. We can, you know, we can really make it impactful. We all know that when somebody starts telling a story about someone or something, we sit back and listen. We don't, you know, talking about TPAC and models and all those different things tend to really shut people off because it seems like it's too much, you know, higher thinking kind of thing, which we all know is that will be part of the professional learning. But what really sells is a story. And I learned that when I went to DC and we had to go talk to our legislators. You got to have a good story. And
you're right.
Yeah, and so maybe our teacher also, we have that teacher be someone who was, you know, who's been teaching for 15, 20 years, and they got really stressed out about, you know, the job of teaching and how she remembered when it was used to be fun to teach, and now that she's learning about some technology and some other strategies, she's very excited. And because of that, her kids are very excited. You know what I mean? You know where I'm going.
Yes. Yeah, that's why I started the beginning of the tech plan with just the story about a person waiting at the gate at the airport trying to use their technology, and then it gets shut down. So it personalizes it and makes it easy to comprehend. And you're right, because the audience we're shooting for, I mean, we're looking at legislators, really, and possibly businesses. They're not going to, I mean, they don't care about TPAC and SAMR and PBL and all of that stuff. They want the story. They want to know what it's going to look like.
Right, and we could contact people that were in the Pathway Project, and, you know, it's been 3 years now, 4 almost, 4 since they finished, and how it made such a change in their teaching. To get some of those little, I mean, we could probably interview them as our, you know, little actors in our little story. It's just, yeah, I mean, if we're going to do this, let's do it. And
Okay. So you're proposing that members of this group pieces of this, that take these scenarios and write them. So, you need to sign that. And also, should there be some parameters on what, I mean, we don't want 12 pages on the student, you know, probably a couple of paragraphs, no more than a page, maybe.
Yeah, maybe 1 page per.
Or less.
Yeah.
Per scenario, what, 12-point font, what inch margins?
APA style.
Yeah.
All right, so 1 page, 12-point.
And while you're doing that, Leslie, does this sound all right? Are you there, Leslie?
Hello.
Hello.
Leslie.
We may have lost her.
Maybe she got a phone call or something.
Yeah. I like this. What do you guys think?
I think it's definitely, I feel better like we've got, more of an idea of where we're really going. I think the last time, a couple of weeks ago when we met like this, we were kind of all over the place, and not because people weren't trying to do good stuff, but it was really difficult to know where to go. So I think this, as long as we can really do this, I think this really points us in a good direction. And I think if we were able to get together somehow for even a day, then I think we might actually be able to produce something out of this, and then use this format to keep tweaking it. I think we'd really possibly get somewhere then. Does everybody agree, or?
Yes.
Yes, this is Leanne, I agree. And I like the idea of the storytelling is huge for others that are all our stakeholders that are outside of education.
Anybody disagree or have issues with anything?
What basic part were you asking if there are issues with?
Well, that we this is a pretty good place to start from and gives us more direction. And then if we're able to maybe meet as a group face to face at least one more time for May, and I think hopefully sooner than later, to really kind of have a day to hash this out, and then still have some time left before that May date when we're supposed to get back together in Carson, to really be able to, hash this out and get it together. I think after today's meeting, at least I feel like we've got a good starting place.
I think what he's asking is, do you like the scenario idea?
Is there anything here that we've been talking about or throwing up here that you disagree with, or or are we all pretty much in agreement that this is the starting point we can go forward with?
I like it.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
I just didn't want anybody to be sitting there thinking they disagreed with something or whatever. So
I think when you come together face to face, you ought to have a firm idea of what your deliverables will be at the end of that time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could say if people are going to go away and do some homework around certain topics or certain matters or tasks, then let's say you decide to get together on day X, and at the end of that day, we will produce A, B, and C. Maybe it will be, the story or the scenario of our framework of what we believe, the education learning environment will look and feel like in Nevada, and then be able to create that scenario, build that picture, and then from that, have that drive how you're going to get to that picture. But have something concrete you'll walk away with from that meeting. Otherwise, we tend to, go around and say the same things over and over again, but some concrete deliverable that you can build upon. Doesn't mean you don't change it, but because you're going to get feedback, obviously.
So maybe that's what we should be working on the rest of whatever time we have left today, is what would the deliverables be if we met up face to face? What would that agenda be, I guess? I see that Tara threw up there the story format, so I mean we'd maybe be hashing those pieces out and taking wherever it went here in the doc, the Nevada Ready Classroom looks like, the teacher looks like is doing this, the students are doing that, and so forth, and coming up with that story kind of page by page. Is that?
Yeah, and if that first bullet, a Nevada Ready Classroom looks like, you can describe what that picture is. You can describe what the teacher is doing, what the students are doing, you know, with the families, or homes, what's going on in the home, and then even compare that to what is today. So then you'll see what the gap is. So we need to go from what we have today to what we're going to be doing then.
Okay, so.
And then I'm envisioning. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm envisioning then when you say that, Leslie, maybe rather than a paragraph, it's more like a table where it's then and now, or now and the future, or whatever, now and Nevada ready.
Yeah, you know, I've got a great idea for you. I just finished a presentation that we're doing next week in California, and there's one slide in it, and we've got 3 video clips in it. I'm going to see if I can get my hands on that to show it to you. But one of the videos, I got the slide deck here. Let me see if I can pull those, how easy it would be to pull those videos up.
Yeah, I don't know how much time everyone has, probably not hardly any like me, but would it be possible for us to have the rough draft for each of these roles prior to the face-to-face, and then at the face-to-face we start putting together the multimedia product of it and refine the draft? And so I'm thinking, you know, like I love we need to use the technology as we would want our teachers and our students to use the technology to create something that is meaningful and has a message. So we need to kind of practice what we're preaching here and use the tools that we all know how to use to really sell it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That kind of speaks to, you know, it almost seems like this piece here that we've been talking about, the story format, is sort of one piece of what we need to be doing, one piece of the framework for PD overall. I mean, if we're really talking about blended learning strategies, we need to be using that in our PD. We need to, you know, I wonder if we need a parallel discussion with this, especially when we meet face-to-face, about, you know, what is this overall going to look like in terms of, you know, what the PD structure is, and,
yes,
you know, how much of it's blended, how is that going to happen, how are we going to honor things the districts are already doing that are along these lines but may not match up exactly the way, you know, we've got to think about how all of that ties together and what the resources are available. I think we probably really need to start that discussion.
Because really, in terms of this project and the purpose of us meeting is that we need to come up with what the cost of this is going to be so that we can communicate that to Dale so that he can hopefully find us some money. So don't lose sight of that piece of it, is that the end goal is to know what it is we're going to do so we know what it costs.
One thing about that, Kim, is that what resonates to me about that topic you just brought up is what current resources exist that can be leveraged into this.
Exactly. So since you brought that up, I'm glad you did, because like when I'm thinking about, okay, how the heck are we going to pull this off? I think, okay, well, we have some resources in the state already. We have actually quite a few really good professional development resources in place. We have E for E for one. We have a plethora of resources in both Clark and Washoe and Carson, and every district seems to have their own set of professional development resources. We have the RPDPs, which are a fabulous resource in the state. So what role do these existing structures play, if any, and can they? And how does that fit in to the model?
Yeah, that was a big part of Dale's I think we all are sensitive to the fact that there's not going to be this plethora of, influx of money coming in to do all these things. It really has to be looking at what currently money is used for and leveraging a lot of those into what we want to have happen here. And so that's going to be, during the work of this group, obviously, there's so much going on with the Common Core curriculum and teacher evaluation and the online assessment piece, but how do we leverage that into this experience so we're not doubling up money, state resources and local resources to reinvent the wheel?
Like taking textbook money and putting it into this instead of just buying textbooks, that kind of thing.
Right. That's an example, yeah. But I
right.
think a good example is those professional regional centers that you have. They obviously have staff. I understand they've already got marching orders and imperatives, but how could those imperatives combine with the professional learning that is going to be talked about here into bringing that together to reality in a delivery model for the region?
So I'm going to jump in and just put it out there. When I've thought about how this can fit together, obviously there has to be an online PD piece of this. That's just the reality, I think. But there has to also be that face-to-face piece. And then the other thing I want to throw in is that, whoever we wind up going with for the device, they generally work into the contract that there's some kind of professional development. Now, I don't know, that's a question for Jeff when we meet with him next week, is how is that working out, and how does that work? But so there's that. But more than that, I mean, could the RPD fees take on that initial face-to-face kickoff that would probably need to happen? And I know we have 2 of them represented today. But then maybe moving forward from that, so there's maybe a kickoff of a face-to-face, or maybe a couple or a series or whatever, we work that out. And then going forward from there, there's like a series of online professional development that's ongoing. And I'm just throwing that out there because we have to start the conversation about that somewhere. Or can the districts do that face-to-face piece? Or, I mean, how does that, or do we meld it together in some way so the districts that can do that face-to-face piece do it themselves, and then maybe the RPD piece step in for those districts that don't have those resources?
Well, and I'd even go further than that. I'm scrolling back down, looking at that Nevada Ready Classroom, teacher, student, parents, business. It might also involve on rollout, having each of those groups represented to make the case. I think, if we get all those groups and individuals working together and agreeing on this and seeing the need and having the governor behind it and making comments about it, and the different, admins, superintendents, and et cetera, and teachers, back to school night and just in general talking about where we're going, I think that's going to be a huge piece of that, informing people what's going on, what's going to be different. But then, yeah, I think you're right. I think, there will probably have to be some face-to-face, maybe even fairly large group at times. But, I mean, we do a lot of that now. So I don't think that's a huge change or hurdle for us to jump over. It just depends on how much of it we really have to do with that.
Yeah, I think
you make a really good point there. One thing I would say is that this group is much smaller than the group that was present on February 12th and 13th, obviously. We know there'll be some drop-off. However, one of the drop-offs is Clark County, which is 80% of the students and probably 80% of the state funding, right? So my question is, to what extent do we need to have Clark County engaged, involved, and supportive as a stakeholder in this plan? Or do we, at the point of presenting a plan, a profile, then it gets shot down because those people were not involved in this conversation or agreement? What just is this is a matter of a matter of protocol or process, how do you see that working? And I guess Kim, as a DOE person, maybe you have a perspective or thought about that, or how we can.
I do.
Okay.
Well, obviously, it's preferable to have Clark County involved always.
Yeah.
But what can we do? I mean, they're not showing up. So there's really not a whole lot. I know Loretta has contacted both Tara and me and said that she is unable to attend the meeting. She feels badly about it, and she had assigned it to somebody else, but that somebody else I don't think is here that I know of.
She had to go early because she had another meeting.
Okay.
She was here for a few minutes.
Okay, and that's kind of how it goes with them, usually.
Well,
so I think
fine. As long as they know, and Dale understands too, that they can't come in at last minute and overturn the cart that these people, all of us, have worked very, very passionately on.
Yes.
And you know what I'm saying? I just want to
I
protect
do.
the interest in the hard work of this group.
I'm ready. I'm ready for that.
All right, great.
Yep.
Perfect. And I think maybe somebody ought to tell them that, to say, you know, we understand you got busy schedules, all of us do too, but you have to understand, if we come up with a plan in which you're not involved, you're not going to have voice, and you also won't have the ability to you know, put a flag on the play at 0 hour. We're moving forward with or without you.
Yeah. I would love the opportunity to say that, but I can't even get anybody on the phone, honestly. So it is what it is, and this is how it goes usually.
Yeah. Okay. I just, for my own edification, I guess I wanted to know that, because you know there was such a vocal presence in our face to face, and now we have no presence going forward. So
yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so where do we go from here? Do we want to divide up the roles, or what is everyone feeling?
Okay, I guess maybe even just what are the roles? Are they we're going to write up the pieces on the Nevada Ready District, here's what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think wherever possible, we try to make it nonfiction. You know, we find people that are good examples of what we're talking about for each of these different things.
Is there any of these that, and I don't know, I'm staff and I'm looking down this list, are there any of these that would make sense to start with? Would we want to know what students are doing and whatever, and then go back from there?
Probably student would make sense to start with student.
Yeah, they're the end user.
Yeah.
And then go from there. I guess I'm not. Maybe then teachers are next, because how are teachers going to make?
And parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, start with the student in the center, and then start moving out from that proximity from the student.
And who are the people? Who are the people also that are going to be doing this?
I think Brian should just tell his story. I'm serious, because when you were in the classroom, that is an example of what we're trying to create now for all classrooms.
So Brian, you get to write the teacher.
And your students, and your students, and what did your parents do to help you?
All right. Well, I'd be glad to do that. I think, and obviously we'll have impact on each other's, right? Because a lot of that had to do with what the students were going to do. I'm looking up here at the very top of this, the people that are listed up there, because not everybody that's listed up there is on this, or is everybody going to be, and there's people that are on here right now that aren't part of the group that's listed at the top of the doc. I'm only asking that because if we're going to split this up somehow, who's really doing it?
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know what Chris was doing today, why he couldn't make it. I don't remember. I think it makes sense also, Leanne, for you and your teachers to contribute to the I don't know. Maybe it's not. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be just one person or two people that does one role. I think maybe we all just start writing our own experiences, our own thoughts in whatever area we have thoughts, and then maybe we flesh it out from there.
I'm kind of picturing maybe, Tara, if you could put together a Google Doc, if you have time to do that, with a heading for each one of those scenarios,
Right.
and then a table underneath there with two columns with the headings, then in Nevada Ready, or now in Nevada Ready, or whatever, however we want to frame that.
Okay.
And then everybody can just kind of go and fill in the things that they're thinking.
Okay.
Does that seem okay?
I like that. That everybody contributes to all of them. That's cool.
Right.
I like that too.
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest making an individual doc for each one, but I think putting them all in one doc so that you're in one place and you can kind of scroll through it and just have big headings.
And I
think it's way better.
And I think too, have you guys seen that 20th century paradigm versus 21st century paradigm? Have you seen that document before?
Yeah, I think I have.
Okay. That's kind of what made me think about that when you said the then and now, or the now and Nevada Ready.
Can you post a link to that
Yeah,
on that document so that we can take a look at it?
I'm going to be able to find it here. Yeah, let me see. It's probably in. Yeah, we have it. Let me find it just so you can see it.
So as you're looking for that, I'm going to mention to everybody that, so if our audience is legislators and potentially businesses, we want to be concise because they love like 1 to 2 page fact sheets. They don't like to page through lots and lots of stuff. So that's why I like the idea of this table, because that's real consumable. It's a lot easier to read a table usually with bullets or whatever than it is paragraphs. So we'll, put down your ideas at this point, but at some point we're gonna want to make it nice and concise, and probably better to err on the side of brevity.
Right. Okay, here it is. Let me pull it up. All right.
Yes, there you go. That's right. Rather than sentences, just some main ideas.
Tara,
like
what's that from?
This is actually on EdTech Origami. It was a blog. Let me find it. Yeah, we revised it a little bit.
If you could post, can you post the link at the top of that Google Doc?
Yeah.
And then we can all take a look at it too.
Let me find it. Okay, yeah, I'll find it and put it on there for the.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Some of those things tie in really nicely with some of the Common Core things too, with the college readiness standards, with the mathematical practices, and NGSS with the science and engineering practices as well. Some of those really tie in nicely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Very nice.
Okay. All right, yeah, I put that link on there.
Okay. We only have about 5 more minutes left. The other thing is, I don't know that, I mean, I hate to say this, but if this is, you know, the kind of work we're going to be doing in this group, do we really need to meet face to face?
Maybe not. I mean, maybe we, you know, get going and then it'll probably become apparent if we really need to, so we can throw stuff at each other or whatever. And if not, then, you know, just do it this way. It's fine with me.
Yeah.
So Holly's asking, we're not going to do a story, or we are?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Can we do a combo of the two, and then depending on how that's looking, combine them or make it go one way or the other? Or, I mean, I think the story idea is a good one, but I also see the 2-column piece, you know, the then and now, but maybe the then and now 2-column piece we can translate into a story. Depends on maybe what format we decide at the end would be that kind of elevator speech piece we're looking for, that's the down and dirty and gives the vision to whoever reads it.
I think, yeah, I was just going to say that, Holly. We're shared brain today. I think making the table is a good like brainstorming for the stories, and I think we make a really nice graphic of that table and link it to. But I also think having the story and obviously something where it's, you know, that short 3-minute video or something where you get the tearjerker going, you know, you got to make it meaningful. I think some of them, it's so easy to overlook just a 1-pager document and go, oh yeah, that's nice, but I really think the story is going to make it hit home.
Yeah.
So start with the columns and then move forward from there.
That'll be our outline for the story.
Right.
There we go.
Because then if we don't do a story, then we're going back to, okay, here's TPAC, here's SAMR.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look at, isn't that cool? And that's really not going to get the message across.
So thinking about ending up with a firm plan and a budget and all that, where do we I'm just wondering if meeting face to face to carve out that time where we can all hash this through, what might be valuable for that piece then, maybe for, you know, thinking about what are the resources, charting that out, all those details, so we can say, you know, do we need a statewide LMS to do this? Do we need, you know, a working group that persists through time to deal with, you know, aligning PD across the state that makes sense for this? All those kind of things, those details that need to be part of a plan to get to a budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to try to get as much as we can online and through, you know, these kind of meetings and stuff, but then also have a face-to-face toward, you know, he needs it by end of May.
Yeah, and then we have our May 7th meeting, which we haven't really drawn up the agenda completely at all at this point. So there could be, I imagine there will be time set aside for work groups to get together.
And I will say that if my memory is serving me, the day that we set up that May 7th date, that seemed to be one of the few the bulk of people had any chance at, you know, agreeing on. So it seems to me that later in the month, and I know my calendar later in the month is a mess. So I don't know if we can change that date to later in May, or is somebody gonna have a heart attack if it rolls into June?
No, that date is set. There's no changing that date.
Should we be further along with this before that date, though? I mean, I'm wondering.
Absolutely. Okay, what I think will happen is, what I'm hoping is, we'll get together on the 7th, and I'll have enough to go on to put everything together from May 7th till the end of the month.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe working with the chairs a little bit, or a lot. And then, you know, because we have to get that to Dale by the end of May.
Yeah,
And that,
okay.
So if you're talking about a face-to-face with this group, it should happen before May 7th.
Yeah.
And as long as we have Holly and Sarah on the call, I mean, would you be willing to come in to Reno for a face-to-face, or would you prefer, I mean, we could try to do some kind of video conferencing of some sort? Is that a yes?
I'm trying to. Hey, I love the face-to-face idea.
Okay, good. And maybe we can try to get the Clark person to come too. I think she's a principal though, which may make it difficult.
Yeah.
Well, and then when we're thinking of that's not on today, you know, is also what am I trying to say? He was on our last call like this.
Chris.
Oh, yeah,
Chris, thank you. Gee, my mind is. So hopefully we can get him back in the fold too.
Yeah.
You do that.
And you're right, Robert, that face-to-face really has to focus on
The details.
the details of what the PD, I mean, what are our resources that we have, and what are people willing to bring to the table and, you know, offer up, I guess, be part of it.
Yeah, maybe that's what we need to say, you know, what does each district have to offer, and maybe that's in our
Yeah.
I think we really do need to get together and really kind of plot that out and see what's achievable, what resources are, you know, work for this, and you know, how those can be aligned in a way that meets the needs of this particular thing. You know, I think that really needs to be probably a multiple-hour conversation where we end up with a framework for how this, you know, for implementation of this, so that it really is achievable and clearly achievable. You know, so it's obviously, yeah, this will work.
And it would be good to get Loretta to that conversation, as opposed to really anybody else from the district, I think.
right.
So, and if she can't come, which she probably will not be able to, maybe we can Skype her in or something.
Video conferencing or something, we've got some systems here. I'm sure we can figure something out.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'll make the Google Doc with the spreadsheet so that everybody can start adding to whatever column they have thoughts on.
And Holly, I think that's what you're asking in the chat, what you should be doing. I think once Tara gets that, add the Google Doc and we'll just kind of go from there, I think.
So this is Leanne. What about the performance indicators? Is that something we're not going to?
Don't worry about those right now.
Okay.
Yeah, those are going to be tied to the budget items. We're light years away from that.
The details, yeah.
Well, we'll take care of that.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the epilogue of our story.
Yeah.
All right.
And one more thing, Tara, I wonder if now, should we send out maybe a doodle and try to figure out a time when we could all meet face-to-face and try to do that sooner rather than later? Or at least plan the date sooner rather than later?
Right. Do you want to look at your calendar and see what you have?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll go from your schedule.
Sure, or, you know, anybody's.
And Kim, are you thinking we meet in the same place we did last time, or?
No. Maybe we could find a spot in Washoe, maybe.
Yeah, we probably can.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I don't know if Matley would work. There's a spot here at RPVP. Just depends on the date and.
Okay. We'll work. Let's pick the date first, and then we'll go from there. Tara, you and I'll get together on. I'll send you an email of proposed dates from my calendar. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
All right.
With you all. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
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 All right, Tara.